Welcome back to Story Stash. I'm your host Duncan, and these are some of my stories I've written. Today I'm reading from my book Ghost Whisperer, and this is chapter 7. So let's get started. Chapter 7. Ed was the only living person Sarah could communicate with. How could he turn her down? He had a gift, damn it. She planned to make use of this gift to catch murderers. Sarah was a recently deceased ghost, and she kept her old habits and routines. She went to work the next day, but her office was no longer hers. She couldn't work on cases as she used to. When you stop working, who are you? Sarah found it depressing. Sarah floated around police headquarters, wanting to say something to people she knew. Unfortunately, they couldn't see or hear her. This frustrated Sarah, and she turned her anger towards Ed, the only person who could hear her, and he'd rejected her. Sarah discovered new talents as a ghost. She could observe people without being seen. She could follow them. Being a ghost infuriated her, having nothing to take notes with. She had to memorize everything. Sarah drifted around her old neighborhood. She met other ghosts. Several just had unfinished business or refused to accept they'd died. They were stuck in their own world. Sarah left them alone. Other ghosts were the victims of murder. It saddened her that many people got murdered and only a fraction found justice. Sarah believed the police did well, but the reality was a shock to her. The revelation further inspired her to solve these murder cases, but she needed Ed. That annoyed her. How could he be so stupid? A couple of days later, while at his work, Ed got a call on his cell. Ed, this is Dr. Noah. Go ahead, doctor, said Ed. I have the results of your tests. You don't need to worry about that issue any further. Thank you, doctor. If you experience any further issues, please make an appointment with my office. Will do. Ed hung up the call. It sounded like a harmless follow-up call from his doctor. He was glad they took care of the murderer without killing him. Ed resumed work on a bug fix. That evening, Connor and Lucy appeared in his living room. Lucy appeared improved from the last time he saw her. She looked at him rather than her feet. Good evening, said Ed. Hello, I expect you heard the news, asked Connor. Yes, Noah called me earlier. Lucy and I watched what happened. Her uncle is on a plane to Guantanamo Bay for an indefinite stay. So it's over. Lucy has justice. Yes, the outcome is satisfactory. There's only one drawback. Lucy's family will never see her body. The CIA disposed of it. You can't tell them what happened. Ed looked at Lucy. Is that okay with you, Lucy? She looked at him briefly, then shrugged. She still wasn't talkative, but he understood. So you can pass on? She nodded, and for a moment she smiled. A moment later she faded from view. She's gone, said Connor. Good, said Ed. Huh? Since I had my injury, I've helped 4 ghosts. It's like I'm running a business, Ed said with a frown. You don't sound happy about it. I'm not. This isn't how I'd planned my life. Do you want me to leave? I don't mind an occasional message to Noah Johnson, but I don't want the danger. Understood. Well, Noah was grateful for the intel. We can limit your involvement to that, where possible. Thank you. What bothers me more is that Sarah, she wants to rope me into a crime-fighting duo. You still have that bag of money. If you need more, the CIA has deep pockets. You could ask Noah for some. I've spent none of that money. Well, I'm going. If I have some intel for Noah, you're okay with it? Yes, that's far less dangerous. Soon Connor left. Later that evening, Ed's cell phone rang. "Hello," said Ed. "Hey, Ed, it's Kate." "Oh, hi, sis. What's up?" "I hadn't heard from you in ages. When are you coming for a visit?" "Yes, I've been busy and lost track of things." "Well, you get over here this weekend. Ellie misses her uncle." "Sure, I'll be there Saturday." Ed hung up the call. He should have called her sooner before she had time to worry about him. As it was, late, Ed went to sleep. The next morning Ed awoke. He proceeded with his morning routine and arrived at work at his usual time. The day went well, fixing bugs. In the evening he drove home. As soon as he arrived, Connor appeared, together with another ghost. This one was an elderly man. "Good evening, Ed. I have a good one for you. This is Bret Askeon. He needs help and he isn't a murder victim," said Connor. "Well, that's different. Pleased to meet you, Bret." The ghost of Bret stared at him briefly. "So you can see and hear me?" he asked. "Yes, I got hit on my head, and now I can see ghosts." "Well, I need your help. I need you to dig something up and give it to my grandson. For that, I offer you 5%. So, no killers, no police. I just dig something up and give it to your grandson." "That's what I said." "Ed, I told him your aversion to danger. This is safe, simple work for you," said Connor. "Is it far from here?" "Not more than a half-hour drive. You'll need to bring a flashlight and a shovel." "Okay, I accept, as long as I don't have to trespass somewhere and risk getting caught." "It's in a forest in public land near my home." "We can go there tonight. I trust you can direct me, of course." Ed left the apartment and took the elevator to the parking garage. He got in his car. The two ghosts appeared inside his car, so he drove out. Bret gave directions as they drove to their destination. "Pull over here," said Bret. Ed exited the car. The ghosts floated out through the car. Ed still amazed Ed that they could ride in the car without falling out whenever he turned a corner. Ed followed the ghosts into the forest. It was late in the year and he needed the flashlight he brought. Bret stopped near a fir tree and pointed at the ground. "Dig here about 3 feet deep." Ed propped his flashlight on a nearby branch and started digging with his shovel. It was one of those folding types he'd bought for camping. Fortunately, the soil wasn't hard with frost yet. Perhaps in a couple of months it would be. About an hour later he hit something. The ghost stood nearby. Soon Ed retrieved a box. "Bring the box back to the car. We'll open it back at your place," said Bret. Ed carried the box, shovel, and flashlight back to the car. The ghosts floated through the car door and sat in the passenger seats. Within half an hour, Ed was back home. He took the box up to his apartment. The ghosts followed. "You can open it." Ed opened the latch and pulled back the lid. Inside, the contents were wrapped in a large plastic bag. They were documents of some sort. Ed opened the bag and pulled some out. "These are share certificates," said Ed. "Count them out. Take 5% for yourself as agreed." Most of the company names on the certificates were all blue-chip companies. Ed recognized several. He sorted them out by company and placed them in piles on the dining table. Ed pulled out his laptop and checked out the stocks. He soon made a spreadsheet of the stocks and their current market values and quantities. "There's over 5 million here. Take 5% for yourself." Ed looked at Connor. Connor just smiled at Ed. Ed took as close to 5% as possible. Actually just under. It was still a lot. Placed the rest inside a bag. Ed pulled out a briefcase from a closet, emptied it, and placed the certificates inside. He could afford a new briefcase. It's late. I'll need to wait until tomorrow to deliver this. Ed returned the briefcase to the closet. He put his certificates into a drawer. You can stay around and stand guard. The bedroom and washroom are off limits. I'm going to sleep. Without checking the ghosts, Ed went to his bedroom and closed the door. The next morning, Ed got up early. He had a delivery before his work. Connor and Bret were there in the living room, so he put on his coffee maker and opened his laptop. Bret, can I get the name and address for your grandson? Bret gave him the information. Ed looked up the address on Google Maps. I'd better call before I drive there. Do you have a number? No, I don't have his number. Can't you look it up somewhere? Ed looked up the number and called. Hello, is that Kevin Askeon, grandson of the late Bret Askeon? Asked Ed. Yes, who wants to know? My name is Ed Tanner. I have something important for you from your grandfather. Could I meet with you this morning? Sure, I'm at home. Ed confirmed the address with Kevin before ending the call. Ed turned to Bret. I suggest you come with me and confirm he is your grandson. Ed left the apartment and took the elevator to the parking garage. 20 minutes later, Ed pulled up outside a modest home. This is the place I remember visiting him here, said Bret. Ed walked up to the front door and rang the doorbell. Bret and Connor floated along behind him. The door opened and a mid-30s young man stepped out. Hello, Kevin. I'm Ed. Please come in, said Kevin. That's him. He's the one, said Bret. Ed smiled at him. He worried about giving all those certificates to the wrong person. They went inside. You said you had something for me. Yes, said Ed. He handed Kevin the briefcase. What is this? They're share certificates. The estimated value is about $5 million, said Ed. Kevin looked at Ed. And these are from my grandfather? Yes, he asked me to give them to you. And how did you know my grandfather? It's a long story that I'd rather not get into right now. Kevin looked at him for a moment, then opened the briefcase. Wow, my uncle contested the will, and everything got locked up in probate hearings. I don't think I'd see anything after that. You want to take those to a broker. Open an account if you don't have one, said Ed. I will, thank you, Ed. Did you want some coffee? No, thanks. I already had some. I have to get to work now. Understood. Well, thank you again for bringing these over. Ed stood. I wouldn't tell your uncle about these if I were you. I won't. Soon, Ed left and drove on to his work. Bret and Connor sat in the passenger seats. They waited until he reached his workplace before speaking. Ed, thank you for that, said Bret. You're welcome. Will you pass on now? Bret said nothing. He just smiled and faded away. I'd better go in. I'll be a little late, said Ed. Of course. I hope this was the help you're okay with. I'll keep my eye open for other opportunities like this. Sure, as long as I'm in no danger and no police involvement. Connor vanished. Ed exited his car and entered his workplace. While Ed worked, the ghost of Sarah roamed around police headquarters. She watched her former colleagues going about their work, wishing she was still with them. Sergeant Scott Dillon addressed a group of detectives, handing out assignments. With Sarah dead, there was an opening for lieutenant. He was an excellent candidate for it. Just then, another ghost appeared. Hello, Sarah, said Connor. Who are you? How do you know me? Asked Sarah. My name is Price, Connor Price. We share a mutual friend among the living. Ed Tanner? Exactly. I understand you tried to get him to help you fight crime and stop killers. I tried. He's not being cooperative, she said. Connor smiled at Sarah. He's not cooperating with you. I got his help with 2 other cases. Really? Ed is what I'd call an asset from my former career. What career? I was in the CIA. I had to manage assets and gather intel. You pushed him away rather than cared about him. Are you here to gloat? No, I'd like to help you. I think we can adjust your approach to get the help you need from Ed. What do you have in mind? Connor and Sarah discussed this in a room full of detectives, all unaware of their discussion. The next day, Ed was working on bug fixes at Disneytech when the phone rang. Hello, said Ed. Hello, Ed. This is Tony. Ed briefly struggled to recall who he was. Tony, how are you? I'm good. I moved back to working at Ian's business, although it's Mary's business now. Sam is out of the picture. I'm glad to hear the business is doing okay. And Mary got it sorted out? Yes. Once she took over, she asked me to return, so I did. I haven't seen Ian since. I suspect he's moved on. Good. I thought as much. Anyway, Mary was asking about you. I didn't tell her about Ian, but she knows you helped. She wants to thank you. I didn't do it for her. I owed Ian a debt, which is paid. Please tell her I'm glad for her and I wish her well. I'll do that, but if you stop by, she'd appreciate it. Like I said, I'm glad all is well. I've done my part and I've moved on. Understood. If I can ever be of help, please call me. I will, Tony. You take care. Ed hung up the call. He didn't want to get involved with either Tony or Mary. It might lead to questions he'd rather not answer. That weekend, Ed travelled to Renton to see his sister Kate. He knocked on the door and entered the kitchen. Ed, said Kate. Hi, sis, he said. Kate was busy baking in her kitchen. She stopped what she was doing to give Ed a hug. So tell me, what have you been doing recently? Work. I moved on to bug fixes, he said. But I thought you were working on a project. Well, after I was in the hospital, they gave the project to someone else. I'm doing bug fixes for now. Hospital? Kate screeched. You were in hospital and you didn't tell me? I suppose I should have started with that. You think? I'm better now. Why were you in hospital? I got mugged on my way home from work. They hit me on the head, said Ed. She stared at him. I'm all right, sis. Sit down before you fall down, Ed. So you got hit on the head and you don't call me? Ed pulled out a chair and sat before she got more mad at him. He wasn't an invalid, but she was treating him like one. Can I get you a coffee? She asked. Thank you, that would be nice. Kate took a mug and poured a coffee from the pot. She usually had a pot brewing. Then she sat down beside him, making Ed uncomfortable. He hated when his big sister did this. You sit there and tell me everything. There's not much to tell you. I got attacked on my way to my car after work. I was in hospital for a couple of days. A couple of days? That sounds serious. No one at the hospital called me. I don't know why. Anyway, that's behind me now. They installed more lights and cameras at work. I'm extra careful. I promised our mother before she died that I'd look after you. Now you go into the big city and get mugged, nearly killed, she said. He looked at her. I'm all right, sis. You're going to put me into an early grave. Next time you have them call me, okay? Yes, sis, he said. This was a reason he didn't visit more often. Now what else has been happening recently? Any love interest? No, only work. I could fix you up with a friend if you like. You shouldn't be alone out there. No thanks, I'm fine. You're sure? A girlfriend wouldn't have stopped what happened. Well, if you changed your mind, you let me know, she said. Just then, Connor appeared in the corner, startling Ed. Ed, is this a bad time? Kate looked in the general direction Ed was looking, but saw nothing untoward. She turned back to Ed. Ed, what's up? Asked Kate. Connor put his finger to his lips. Nothing. I remembered something for work. Oh. A minute later, the kitchen door opened and Ed's 4-year-old niece, Ellie, came in. Uncle Ed, she said. Ed gave her a hug. Connor smiled. Kate poured a glass of milk and put it on the table for Ellie. Ellie sat on a chair and sipped her milk. It was then she discovered the translucent man standing in the corner. Ed, she can see me, said Connor. Ed shook his head. He didn't want this disaster to get worse. Ellie turned to Ed. Uncle, who's your friend? What friend? Asked Ed. Just before she turned back, Connor disappeared. When Ellie looked again, he was gone. There was a person there, said Ellie. Ellie walked to the corner, but Connor wasn't there anymore. Ed sighed. He stood and walked into the living room. Ellie, why don't you show your artwork to Uncle Ed, said Katie. A moment later, Ed was on the sofa looking through Ellie's latest creations. She'd forgotten about the translucent man. Well, that's the end of Chapter 7. In the next episode, we have Chapter 8. More Russian agents. Connor enlists Sarah's help. Ed helps some Japanese ghosts. See you next episode.